Welcome, Vanessa Eriksson. The stage is yours.
Thank you, Johanna. Thank you all for coming here to listen to how innovation today drives the agenda of the Chief Data Officer. It's quite a lot. I didn't expect actually that many people to want to know more about it, but thank you all. That really says that it's happening. It's taking a little time, as I usually tell my clients, it's taking a little time, but it's happening. Before we get into it, a little about me. I've a long experience of being within the telecommunication industry, Sony Eriksson, and the last 8 years at Telia. I joined PwC's data and analytics team August last year, so I've been here roughly for around 7 months. As Johanna said already, a lot of advisory boards. Privately, I'm a mother of 3 teenage daughters. I put that picture of me looking really nasty because that's how I look these days. And I drive a lot of initiatives with young girls in technology in my private time. I work with big organizations, so if there's any of you that really want to do something for girls in technology, getting youngsters to join, please talk to me after this. The definition of the Chief Data Officer, because a lot of us are wondering what does this role do? And this is, I'm not ashamed to say, this is a definition I took from Gartner, however, changed a little in red, because no matter the title. And I think today, talking to a lot of organizations, I think a lot of us that we do not have the title as yet, but we have the role. So I think what we're trying to do here is fight to say, you need to call me a Chief Data Officer. Because I got the question, really, what's in a name? And I'm thinking, really, what's in a name? Would we go to the CFO and say, listen, by the way, from tomorrow, you're not called CFO, we'll call you Head of Finance. Would that work? No. If you're doing the work of a Chief Data Officer, why not get the mandate? Because getting that role, getting that mandate actually tells the rest of the organization to take you seriously and to take your role seriously. It also sends the outsiders, your shareholders, the outside industry, a statement saying, we're taking data seriously in the organization. But yes, you've got the definition up here. It carries the accountability for the firm's enterprise data, the strategy, the governance, and what's most important is the exploitation of that data. The evolution of the Chief Data Officer, one of my data colleagues put this story on LinkedIn, and I saw, I felt I'd been through that journey. So I'm going to share it with you. Because I think a long time ago, while I was still at Telia, they started with, the business wanting some reporting system. And I think either because, it was cumbersome, it was expensive, whatever the reason, business didn't do a great job. The IT didn't do a great job. And business caught up with that. So business decided, you know what, I can do a better job. So they started building up their own reporting systems. And I think the foundation was not there. You didn't have your rules. Your definitions we could not agree with. There was no ownership in place. So basically, business failed as well. Yeah? So it was quite safe to say that business and IT both failed. But then you had, and at this point, the Chief Data Officer, the CEO was nowhere in place. Business intelligence platforms started to get really popular. And since it was so technology-driven, the CIO again was in the driver's seat. Business stayed back. And then it was the marketing department that first started to realize the value of that data. So in rolled the first data scientist. But the data scientist did not have any knowledge of the business. And that's really where the Chief Data Officer came to be. the first one. But the first chief data officer had the entire, evangelizing of that role. So with the Amazons and the Facebooks and the Googles, I think that today CEOs have actually understood the value of data. So today we find quite a few chief data officers, the next generation of chief data officers that are in power today, or driving data agendas. This is really most of the presentations out here. I've listened to some. This is what all of us are doing. We're connecting devices, we are looking at algorithms, we are trying to, these are the global trends, and we are trying, at the end of the day, trying to impact either the top or the bottom line revenues. We're trying to find new business models. And that's where also the need for the chief data officer comes in, because you have nobody, and you can challenge your organizations because you have nobody on that level actually looking for the entire, what are we doing with our data? Because you're starting small POCs of innovation. I was in a room of a lot of people, a lot of technology guys jumping up and down, because of the technology. Because yes, from the devices, our data is coming in, but there's nobody looking at what about the data? Who's looking for the security or the privacy of that data? Nobody in there was looking at that. Nobody had that agenda. So I think that all of you, because I know that a lot of companies, a lot of organizations are looking at innovation and running these POCs today. We're working within lab environments. What you need to do is, from that lab environment, pick which POC we want to take forward to the target-driven, what direction we want to go. And that is also why you need your chief data officer. Responsible AI. Just like we have GDPR today, the next big thing that we see at PwC is going to be responsible AI. Because, let's not go further. Look at all the crap on Facebook that is up in the news today. Yeah? How do we run responsible AI? Who is running that agenda? Because we're driving so aggressively, we want to find new things, we want to find new revenues. There's nobody that's looking at, okay, are we transparent? Are we taking the right decisions? And we believe at PwC that this will be the next big wave. So my advice to you, don't be, running ahead with these, your artificial intelligence and all your programs, and then say, oh, damn, we should have thought about this. We should have done, put in the responsibility in how do we actually work with this. So when you're going back now, take this, look at the work that you're doing and say, where can I start to run responsible artificial intelligence programs? So why are chief data officers being appointed today? There are three different areas. There are three big areas. While I was at Eurasia, I was brought in for compliance, because working with Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan, and all these countries, the agenda was different. So my agenda was purely compliance-driven, security-driven. So I think you can come in, depending on which path your organization is taking, you have a certain area that you come in. Either it's innovation, or compliance, or simply enterprise, because you have your legacy issues, you have all the other crap to still deal with. But whatever direction you get into, start, but don't stop there, because you need to take into consideration all the other aspects as well. And at the end of the day, you need to work with all the other areas too. This function cannot work as a silo. And that's where I've put this slide down, because what is really then under the mandate of the Chief Data Officer? So depending on where you come from, you can have your data governance. And I believe that all these legs, so if you have data governance, your master data, your data quality, you have people running them for you in the organization. You have a head of master data or head of data governance. And these people need to report to the chief data officer. And I've also included there the innovation and the artificial intelligence, all the other tracks that you could think of. Reporting to the chief data officer. I'd also like to add here that today I see a lot of organizations are looking at the chief data and analytics. They're combining this role because there's a lot more to be gained for them. So you could have typically an analytics officer or a chief data officer, and also the role covering both. The challenges, oh my God, the challenges are numerous. I'll tell you what's the biggest one today, making room for the chief data officer. Because you have typically the CIO and the CTO. And I don't understand why the chief data officer is such a challenge to both these roles, because let's all face it, the CIO has never really looked after data, have they? No. They do not have the credibility. They will never get the credibility of running a data agenda in the organization. And I think that, I mean, the chief technology is the infrastructure, you know, the networks outside. So I think the biggest challenge for these guys is like, out, make space. That is the big one, the biggest one today. And then you have the scope. You know, this is a role that is so new, and there's a lot of expectations on this person. So I think making certain what is the scope for the chief data officer. The legacies, I mean, we all got legacies. Where do you start? Which one do you take first? The commitment also because you're sharing this with the other C-levels, and you need to make sure that you got the commitment from them as well, and they're backing you up. Recruiting, because this person needs to be both an evangelist. You need to know something about the data. Nobody's asking you to be an expert. We don't need to know all the algorithms, and we don't need to know the technology, but this person needs to have enough knowledge to drive a data agenda together with the rest. I've put this slide mostly because I get a lot of questions about data governance, and especially today. And I go back to my example where, you know, I was in this room full of men that was so excited about the technology. And I asked them one question: who owns the data? Because here I had my device, my device providers, I had business, and I had the platform provider. And then I asked them, so who owns the data? And you know, it was so funny because everybody put up their hands and said the data is mine. And yet I remember not so long ago when I tried to run data governance at Telia, and I went to a room full of business analysts and I said, who owns the data? And everybody looked at one another and said, well, not mine. So you see that with the innovation and also with people knowing how valuable data is, it's a new ball game. Everybody wants it today. So I think that's where you also need to make sure who owns the data. Governance is critical. This is quite a lot of text here, but I'm going to just read the questions out because I want you to think about that. So why do you need a chief data officer? How can I monetize on those insights? That's one question. Who's giving you that answer? Do you have somebody in the organization? Because typically, that is what your chief data officer would do. What data scientists, with data scientists being such a scarce resource today, I mean, we know, a lot of you probably here are data scientists, you guys are so expensive. Do you really want all of you to be spread out in the organization? Would that really add value to your organization? Because you're so expensive, you know, why not consolidate you, put you in a group so you can add greater value? So I see that I'm running out of time, so I'm going to skip this. What is needed by the chief data officer? Credibility. I mean, these are some of the things that we need this person to have. I think I like this slide because it says, how many today, 21% have the title Chief Data Officer, 35% have the accountability, but missing the title of Chief Data Officer, and 44% drive innovation agendas. You also see the focus area for 2018. You've got digitalization, business analytics, and compliance. This was a survey done by PwC. I love my job. I meet a lot of people, a lot of heads of running data. Chief data officers, I usually interview them and I put them up. I hashtag them from one chief data officer to another. If you connect with me on LinkedIn, all the interviews are there. And if any of you want to share your challenges or stories with me, please find me on LinkedIn. I think it's fantastic because we need to make this more aware to the rest, that you're not alone. We're all suffering, yes. That perhaps wasn't the right word to use, but we're all in the same boat together. That was all that I had, and I've got 3 minutes, Johanna. I did well.